Hello and very warm welcome to this short video on the novel Moth by Mohsen Hamid. This novel has a very unique characteristic, like many postmodern novels, that it has got a very unusual start, that it takes the help from history. It records a story from the history and takes the characters from there and names them in the modern setup of Lahore. Though the history is that of the Muslim Mughal India, but it's very much relevant as it happened in that history, in that story. It's going to happen same in this new story as well. Mohsen Hamid has used this technique and has mentioned the very story in the beginning of his pages. Let us enter into those pages and see what does Hamid say about the story of that time of Mughal India. For this purpose, let me take you to the text of the novel. It is like this. First of all, I can show you the title page, that is the Math Smoke by Mohsen Hamid, and then it is some type of introduction, and after that the story begins. We need to read little bits of the story, and I shall be explaining all that. It is said that one evening in the year his stomach was to fail him, the Emperor Shah Jahan asked a Sufi saint what would become of the Mughal Empire. Who will sit on the throne after me? Asked Shah Jahan. Tell me the names of your sons, replied the saint. Dara is my eldest son. The fate of Dara should be asked from Iskandar. The emperor toes curled beneath him. Shuja is my second son, but Shuja is not Shuja. But what about Murad? Murad will not fulfill his Murad. The emperor closed his eyes. Aurangzeb is my youngest son. Yes, said the saint, he will be Aurangzeb. The emperor gazed across the plain at the incomplete splendor of his wife's mausoleum and commanded his workers to redouble their efforts. It would be finished before the war of succession began. So we can see that the book is starting with the type of narration of the story of Shah Jahan, who at the time of his illness went to a saint, holy saint, and put him the question which of his sons is going to become the king after him when he's no more. In fact, he was suffering from the diseases and wanted to have some type of knowledge which son of his will be the king. Of course, he wanted that his eldest son Dara should be the king because he liked Dara probably. And it is very strange fact that the saint was not giving him any favorable reply. For example, on the mention of Dara, he didn't say any positive sign. Then he came to his second son, Shuja. He said that Shuja will not be Shuja, and again he told about another son. Three sons were talked about, and there was no mention of any success. But as soon as Shah Jahan, the last son, was talked about, he was of least liking of the king to make him king after him. At that time, the saint said yes to him. So, in this way, the story is being told to us in the sense that Aurangzeb, the last son of King Shah Jahan, would be the king, and he will be the ruler and he will be the winner, even if many other characters were present. Same is going to be the case in the story, though the father is not in that sense the king, though the situation is not like that. Saint is not telling anything, but still we find that one is Daru or Dara, and then we have Dara Shukuu is the full name, but I'm using this half name Dara. And then we have another name, that is Aurangzeb, and that is going to be something which type of competition would exist in the story of the novel, and that competition also would show that Aurangzeb has won. So the lead is being taken from the history, that is historicizing the present and adjusting it. The past is being adjusted in the future. So in this way, the writer has taken up a very beautiful start of his novel by talking about the similar kind of story which happened, and he uses the structure and then the plot and then the characters of that story into his new story. That's a very beautiful technique used by him, as most of the time is used by the postmodern writers. Let us go deep and see what further happens after getting this information. What does King do? What did Aurangzeb Alamgir did with the king and his brothers? That is still to be found out. For this purpose, let us dig deep into the text once again. So here we are, and we can see that the king, when he listened to this answer, he looked at the plain, at the incomplete splendors of wife's mausoleum, and commanded his workers to redouble their efforts. It would be finished before the war of succession began. The truth of the saint's word became apparent. Aurangzeb was crowned emperor, and he obtained from the theologians a fatwa against his defeated brother, charging Dara Shikoh with apostasy and sentencing him to death. Unlike the modern day democracies, it was the kind of fight which took place among the sons of the king at that time, as he had four sons. So it was expected that all these four will be fighting with each other. And so the king wanted to make it settled forever. The fight should not take place, but the fight has to happen as per the tradition. So, according to the results of the fight, Aurangzeb Alamgir became the king, and Dara Shikoh, who was the eldest one, who was the competitor with Aurangzeb, that person was to be killed very soon because a fatwa of apostasy was taken against him. And in this way, all barriers were to be removed from the way of that Aurangzeb, the last king. Let us see what further is done by him. Well, in that way, Aurangzeb became the king. And the writer tells us the Alamgir Nama records the incident. Thus, the pillars of faith apprehended disturbance from Dara Shikoh's life. The emperor, therefore, out of necessity to protect the holy law and also for reasons of state, considered unlawful to allow him to remain alive. Imprisoned in his fort at Agra, staring at the Taj he had built, and aged Shah Jahan received as a gift from his youngest son, the head of his eldest. Perhaps he doubted then the memory that his boys had once played together far from his pavilion and years ago in Lahore. When the uncertain future becomes the past in turn becomes uncertain. So the end is very heinous, very bad one, as it happened in case of these four sons of King Shah Jahan. That one became the king, Aurangzeb became the king, and Dara was to be killed in that way. Not only this was done in a very painful way, but also the same king also put his father to imprisonment, and there he sent the head of the beloved son to him. So that was the cruelty committed by him in order to perhaps save his kingship and to fulfill the norms of kingship of that time. So the king was surprised, king was upset, king had a type of Asiatic memory that are these his sons who used to play together? Yes, it is the law. When the kings rule at that time, such things keep on happening. Any king would not like to have any opposition in his kingship, may it be the opposition of a father or that of a son or that of the brother, all will be very brutally crushed, and the same thing happened there. This brutal crushing happened in the past time, and it may be happening in a different way, in a very different style in the modern time as well. That is why the poet says, the writer, the novelist says, when the futures become the past becomes uncertain, and the uncertainness of the past affects the futures and the present as well. So, in this way, uncertainty leaps on and keeps on taking place everywhere. Let's see how does the support of the story end. Here, the writer continues to say, yesterday, an ordinary man may have been roused from his sleep to sit in judgment the midnight trail of an empire. Before him, as he blinked dream from his lashes, sat a prince accused of the greatest of all crimes, a poet and a pantheist, a possible future. None present were innocent, save perhaps the judge, and perhaps not even he. So that is the way how does the ancient story closes before the first chapter begins. And we are being told by drawing a scene in the court of the Qazi of that time when Dara was presented there. The orders were passed by him sitting silently, though he was a poet also. He was a learned person also. He was liked by the people as well, but still he was killed on the sentence given by the court of that time. So all barriers were removed from the way of the king Aurangzeb, and he was able to rule in a very perfect way, without any kind of resistance at all. Now, it is our duty when we read the novel to see how much this story, or how much part of that story, or how much the plot or the characters or the influence or the techniques of that story have been modernized into the modern text of this novel of Moth, written in the 1990s. Although the story we are taking it's from at least 100 years back, so that is why, or rather 200 years back now we should say, it's the past of the Mughal India, and so how does the past become present, and how does the present become the past, that we need to see when we read this novel. And this is the very beauty of the novel of Mohsen Hamid, Maat Smoke. Okay, that's it for this day. We will be once again meeting in another video when the chapter 1 starts of this novel, and we will be having greater discussion on that with respect to this context that I have tried to develop in the beginning of the story. Thank you very much everybody for watching this. Hope to see you in some next video.